We have this from UPA.com. Body found. 100 plus arrested amid violent LA protests of ICE raids. Yeah, it's kind of funny. This is on the back half of the show, but they found a corpse near where all the businesses had been looted. And they're not revealing much information right now. They're saying local law enforcement investigating the death of a man whose body was found on a downtown LA sidewalk early Tuesday where protests and looting have occurred. The unidentified man was dead. The cause of death is being investigated. I'm going to go ahead and say it is related to the riots. But let's just entertain this. Maybe it's not directly. But I'd imagine if it was something like an overdose, the likelihood of survival was substantially higher if police weren't tied up with riots. So this is what happens when police are drawn away and they can't do their jobs. They're not patrolling. You get dead bodies. And the LA riots now have one confirmed death. We don't know. I'm not saying he died because of rioting, but he died in the where they were rioting.
Yeah, I wonder what happened to him.
Maybe the Democrats would argue he simply was walking down the street before suffering from a congenital heart defect and then just collapsing. And it's a sad, tragic story.
Yeah, that's probably what they'll say.
Yeah.
That's probably what happened.
Or he could have been looting a business and got into a fight or, got hit by a brick.
Yeah. Well, maybe he got hit by a rubber bullet and now everyone will get to sue. Because my favorite thing is how the police are not supposed to use lethal measures, which, okay. So then they use the non-lethal measures, which...
No, they don't.
Sometimes they do.
They're called less lethal.
Less lethal, yes. Right. But then people sue when they get hit with it. And it's like you were literally rioting. And they shot you with a rubber bullet and you have a big bruise on your leg.
Well, that Australian lady, the Australian reporter wasn't rioting. That's the issue.
Right.
There's also this video, and I hate to defend
rioters do sue for this stuff.
Sure,
in Portland.
and I hate to defend this guy because he's actually appears to be a communist, but he's antagonizing a cop and yelling at him, saying, "What's your name and what's your badge number?" That's not illegal. And then the guy says, "I'm going to pop you," and he goes, "For what? For standing here asking you a question?" And then the cop shoots him with the 40 millimeter.
Oh yeah, that's not.
And then the guy says, "Yo," what? And he yells at the supervisor, like, "What's that guy's name? He just shot me." They ignore him. And then the guy shoots him again. And people are on X laughing, and I'll be like, this is how you lose.
Yeah.
This is how you lose.
Yeah.
You're allowed to be annoying. Cops can't just pop people with 40 millimeter foam rounds because a guy's being annoying.
Yeah, that is a little much. I can see how you're tempted, but it's a little much. You gotta rein that in.
Yeah, I mean, I heard that he got shot in the groin point blank. And I said, I certainly enjoy videos where people, get a football in the groin.
Sure.
But I understand... you can't defend that. The cop shouldn't have done that. First of all, he's wasting ammo. It should be, well, yeah, he's shooting a guy in the groin.
Yeah.
I mean, because he got emotional. Nah.
Yeah.
You see somebody about to throw a brick, and this is what these things are for, not some guy yelling at you.
100% true.
But also, I can see how it'd be tempting.
I'm not saying nothing.
By the way, I was trying to find it here. I found it somewhere, but somebody calculated that National Guard troops are called out since about the 60s on an average about every 5 to 7 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I know the Ferguson riots, it's funny when they're like, Donald Trump is sending the military against the people. Obama did it.
Yeah.
In Ferguson, he's saying National Guard. It's not literally Obama, but the governor.
The last LA riots in 92,
Yeah,
I mean, George.
Well, that was, wasn't the Army, was it only National Guard?
Well, no, they had Marines there as well, too.
Because that was something that.
And the Marines
was
were a little
crazy.
funky in how they acted. But
I don't think we've seen riots that bad. I mean, like the Summer of Love riots nationwide, so they escalate in a different way. But the LA riots, they were murdering people. I guess the BLM riots were worse. Yeah, I guess actually it's fair to say the BLM riots were worse, and Trump did nothing. And I'm really upset. I'm pissed off about it.
You think the BLM riots were worse?
36 deaths nationwide.
Yeah, it was.
hundreds of millions of dollars and
Billions.
damages.
Billions.
Yeah, it was
Firebombing of federal buildings for 3 months in the Pacific Northwest, and Trump did nothing.
Well, he kept talking to the mayors and stuff, and the mayors were like, no, we have it under control. You don't need to call in the National Guard. He kept threatening to call in the National Guard without actually doing it.
And he should have.
Yeah, and he should have.
Instead,
Absolutely should have.
I'll say this,
those
though.
two boys might not have been killed at the, the Capitol Hill occupied protest thing.
Jump at it backwards. He sends in the police to Lafayette, outside the White House, and clears out the riots, and he gets attacked for it. He lets the riots take place all across the country, and he could have done something about it. I think Trump should have stood down during the insurrection, the leftist insurrection, M29 in 2020. You had 1,000, 2,000 or so rioters, hundreds of federal law enforcement injured. They firebombed St. John's Church. Trump should have issued a statement saying, due to a serious concern about injury to peaceful protesters because of the riots, we will be withdrawing law enforcement and hope things de-escalate. And then what would the leftists have done? They'd have stormed the White House.
Yeah.
And you would have had an M29 White House, Trump in the emergency bunker. People would be ransacking it, and he'd say, "Oh, heavens me, the far left." And I've heard people say to me when I tell them this, they're like, "Yeah, but then the media would claim he failed and he's a bad leader." And then Trump need only say, "You know, I was as surprised as you that the far left was willing to engage in insurrection because the media kept saying they were peaceful protests, and so we backed off, and they were wrong." That's what he should have done, because that's what Pelosi did on January 6th.
Yes, she did. She just lied.
And everyone wondered why police and National Guard and no one came out when they knew these people were going to be there. And it's because Pelosi, isn't it on camera? She's saying, "I made this happen."
Yes, and she also said on camera that this is something that they would regret, not having acted more swiftly to do anything.
And it was her call.
It was her call.
Yeah. By the way, Ramesh Ponnuru wrote, I think, in the Wall Street Journal just recently, and he made this statement about all the problems with the Trump presidency. One of them was, and he doesn't have the advisors who restrain him anymore, even though it's ultimately Donald Trump's fault in his first administration. No, he does have the right advisors right now, because he is thinking much more clearly through these things and acting on them. I think many, like what you're talking about, Tim, I agree. And I think he should have allowed that to be shown for exactly what it was. You don't wait till January 6th to do that, by the way, when you're going out of office. And that's a serious issue here. Like, he's got the right people around. It's not perfect, have some criticisms, but this is really much more fantastic than these ninnies, these Mike Pence-style ninnies and I say this, by the way, and I went to church with Mike and Karen for 5 years, and Mike introduced me to my first job. But, these kind of crazy ways of thinking about Washington, D.C., that are very Mike Pence style are absurd. And Donald Trump's not doing that this time. And I think we actually have a really real hope when we're talking about, no, go take some freaking action, that he might do it. And it will provide benefits, because at the base of everything in politics is not what do the polls say right now, or what's the trend at the moment of what I need to be doing. The American people, at least, like real action on the principle.
Yeah.
And to take on, again, as we were talking about, the seditious behavior, to take it on and be direct with it, even if you get a little bit of a plunge of response and you stay with it and get results, that's what people are looking for. They're not waiting for you to figure out what they are saying. There's someone that said, I can't remember what leader it was, but there was some famous person in the past that said, "Oh, there are my people. Let me see where they are going so I can lead them." Right? That is not what you do in politics. You go lead, and the people will be inspired, and they'd follow. That's actually one of the great things about Donald Trump, with all his faults. That's one of the great things that we have as an example, if people will take it once he's off the scene.
Yeah, I mean, look, I do think that the Trump administration probably has more leeway than people think that he does, especially when you hear such consternation about the fact that Donald Trump is doing anything at all. The government does things that are clearly 100% within the purview of the federal government. Enforce the existing laws passed by Congress, and if necessary, protect the federal agents that are enforcing those laws, right? Those are unquestionably things that the federal government has the authority to do. And people are making such a big deal about it. I think that it turns into a bit of a Chicken Little, which is something that the left has done well for the past 15 years. It turns into a Chicken Little, saying the sky is falling because they're just enforcing the law, when really they might be able to actually bend the law a little bit and get away with it for the broader population. So, but I don't know how much Donald Trump has in him to actually do that, because no matter how much the left wants to paint him as such a terrible authoritarian that wants to do all these terrible things. I don't buy that for 1 second. And I think that his first administration was evidence of that. The fact that he was trying to keep from being the authoritarian president. He always wants to be the guy that gets along. He forgives people that he had, or he lets bygones be bygones of previous, disagreements or whatever. So.
So Newsom's supposed to speak in a few minutes. I guess we'll pull that up. They say it's going to be on X, I guess.
That's wild that he's just putting it on X.
Good for him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and X, it says.
Well, all of it, yeah, I guess.
Governor Newsom's address, Democracy at a Crossroads. He's running.
Oh, he is for sure.
Oh,
running.
yeah, heck yeah.
Yeah. You know what he looks like, though, is
A lizard?
Dastardly Do-Right. You know that guy?
No.
What's his name?
Das-
Dirk Dastardly.
I always thought he looked like
from
the Joker.
Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Dirk Dastardly?
Yes, did you not know Dirk Dastardly?
I thought he was always
From
the
Rocky and Bullwinkle.
clean-cut Joker. The pointy, clean-cut looking Joker. Because Joker's had a couple different looks.
Yeah, he looks more like the Joker to me.
Does
He
he?
does.
Or Two-Face.
Yeah, a little bit
Maybe,
of
yeah.
Two-Face.
That's who you think he looks like?
That's it. Yeah.
No, that's not a good picture of him. Normally he's got like the teeth. It's the teeth, really.
I think he's Harvey Dent.
Oh, yeah. He's definitely running, though.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
And he has.
I
about-
mean,
He wants to be president. So
I got to be
bad.
honest. If he did fall halfway into a vat of chemicals or get like splashed acid on his face, well, like, by a mobster, and then he became Two-Face, I might vote for him. Mm-hmm. I'd be like, well, because then the good half comes
Right.
out. You know what I mean?
Right. Interesting.
I was just contemplating the fact earlier today that, first of all, it's been 13 years since 2012 when Mitt Romney was the presidential candidate with the best hair ever.
Right.
And Gavin Newsom just may be able to go beyond that if he really works
He
hard.
does have pretty great hair.
Yeah.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.